Alright, we're going to walk through the Mariner Peristaltic Filler HMI and all the various screens on that HMI. Start right here is the main screen. This is the main screen you'll have up during production and gives you access to all the other screens in the system. So on this screen, at the very top you've got a status bar. So that's going to show you currently what is going on, and if there's any faults or warnings, they're going to pop up there and tell you what is wrong or what the error is. Down here we've got fill level indicators, so during each fill cycle each pump will show how far through its process it is, give you a little visual indication of what's going on there. Over here on the left side we've got our batch system. So if you wanted to say fill 500 bottles and then stop after you fill those, you could enable the batch system, set how many bottles you want to fill, reset your fill count, and then once the system gets to 500 fills, it'll stop the system and say batch count completed. If you just want to run continuously, just disable that and the system will keep running as long as you have bottles to fill. On the right side here we have our different menus for setting up, choosing a recipe, setting up the pumps, and setting up your index system, and then a maintenance page that gives you some more detailed information. So let's dive into that recipe system. I'm going to click the recipe button in the top right. This brings up the recipe menu. This menu is a little complicated. So first we need to select a recipe from our list over here on the right, and then we can choose to populate it over here on the left if we want to edit it. So as I scroll through, you can see that arrow show which one is selected. Then to actually select it, I have to hit this enter key. Now you can see it's highlighted. That means I've selected it. Now I can hit the view button and it's going to populate this table over here with all the settings. Now I can cycle through each list. And so we've got all our various set points in here. You can change your conveyor speed, your fill volume, timing on the index system. And what it's showing here is what value you're going to change, what the recipe is calling for, and what you currently are running. So if you've got it currently set up the way you like it, you can go back in and just match your numbers and then save your recipe to save those settings. So if I want to edit the conveyor speed on this recipe number 2, I'll highlight conveyor speed, hit enter. Right now we're at 30. That's a percentage out of 100, so let's take it to 35. Hit enter. I've now changed the value, but I need to save any changes I make. So I'll hit save. It's now saved any changes I've made. And then if I want to run this recipe with it highlighted here in this column, I hit run selected recipe. If you've changed anything that will affect the fill level or anything like that, it's going to throw a warning that just says, hey, make sure to do a recalibration. You've changed some settings for the fill level. So with that, you can hold a lot of different recipes, 20 all the way through, and that's the recipe screen. So to go back to the main screen, we'll just hit main screen. On this main screen you can see what recipe we just loaded right here. So recipe loaded 3-ounce roll-on, and that'll populate based on what recipe you're running. So now the next menu down is called pump calibration. We'll go into that menu. So this is where you're going to dial in your fill levels. You've got 4 pumps here. Those represent 1, 2, 3, 4 on the fill set. You can dial in each one individually, or just dial in the first one and set all of them to the same value. It's going to pull your fill volume in milliliters from the recipe that you selected. So we've got an 88 milliliter fill selected right here. And to calibrate this, what you're going to do is put a bottle under fill valve 1, hit this dispense button, which I'll do off screen here. Then you would go measure the volume that was dispensed, either in a graduated cylinder or using a scale if you know the density of your product. Let's say it was a little low. I'm shooting for 88 and I got 75. I'm just going to punch in 75, hit enter. Now I can hit calibrate. And what that's going to do is tell the system, hey, I only got 75, I was looking for 88. It's going to do the math to figure out how many more revolutions it needs to do on the motor to get to that volume. So you can see it changed that button that says dispense required to calibrate. So in order to do another calibration, we need to do a dispense, and then we can check the volume again. Once we get fill valve 1 set, if all your hoses are brand new and everything's similar, you can just hit this set all pumps to match 1, and it's going to make pumps 2 through 4 do the same number of steps as pump 1 to get the same fill. You can also go through each head individually and calibrate it just like we did on pump 1. Other features on this screen are the purge features. So we've got these purge buttons on the bottom. If I place a bottle under valve 1, hold down the purge button, it's just going to run that pump for as long as I have it held down. As soon as I let go, that pump stops. That's good at startup. You need to bring product all the way through the hoses and to the valve in order to correctly calibrate it. You also have a purge all button where you can just run all 4 of them and get them all purged. Along the bottom on this screen, there's a few key settings. Anti-drip, what that's doing is that after it runs its fill volume, it runs the pump in reverse a certain number of steps that's programmable in the recipe to suck up any drips from that nozzle. So your choice on if you want to run it, you can turn it on or off. If you calibrate with it on, it will include those steps in the calibration. Next to that, we've got pumping directions. So right now we're pumping forward. If you want to set up your index or clean out the system at the end of the day, you can click that. Now our pumps are going to run reverse. That's one key thing to check if you're pumping and not getting any product. Make sure that's set to pumping forward. The rest of the buttons here just allow you to actuate the various pins in the index system and the nozzles up and down if you need to do that for whatever reason while you're calibrating. This screen, you can go through a calibration mid-production run. So if you're running bottles, you can pull 4 off as long as you keep track of what nozzle each one came out. You can measure it, adjust your fill level mid-run, and it'll just on the next cycle take that change into effect. So what we recommend is when you're starting out, maybe every 30 minutes, every hour, pull 4 bottles, check the volumes, and recalibrate, and then you'll start to get a feel for how often you need to adjust that. The next menu down is the index setup. So this is going to walk through how to set up our pin indexing system on the Mariner and some values that you can change to adjust the speed that the machine's running at. So the first one is just going to walk you through a quick setup on how you want your pins set. About 6 screens there that just show you how to set up the rails, the pins, and all of that. If you go to the advanced page, now you've got some various timers that you can set that can affect how well the bottles pin index and can also affect your overall speed. Similar to the pump calibration menu, we've got all the buttons on each screen to manually actuate all the pins, the nozzles up and down. When the nozzles are down, you can't extend the drip tray or else they'll collide. So with the nozzles up, then you can extend your drip tray. If your drip tray is extended, you can't send the nozzles down because they would collide. So once we retract the drip tray, then we can move our nozzles up and down. Last on here is an advanced help screen. That's going to walk through each one of these settings, give you a better explanation of what they mean, what you're changing when you do that, and where a good default setting is for each one. That screen does take a little while to load. There's a lot of information on there. So once you hit it, just give it a second to load, and it'll walk through each setting and tell you what each one means. The last screen on here is our maintenance page. This is going to give you an I/O screen to show you various states of the sensors on the screen. So if I block our backup sensor, you can see it'll turn green. So that just gives you a good status to make sure that all your sensors and photo eyes are functioning as they should. Also on this screen, we've got a timer for your backup delay. So if the Mariner's shutting down due to a backup too easily and you want to make that take a little longer, you can just change this value up and it'll take longer for that backup to trigger. That'll be affected by your conveyor speed and your bottle size. So if you're running a big wide bottle, you might want to bump that number up a little bit. Everything else on this screen is the same as the other screens. You can change your anti-drip on and off. You can change your pumping direction and your drip tray enabled or disabled on this main screen. It'll also tell you how many bottles per minute you're going to get. That's just calculating how many cycles it's doing per minute. So it's going to go in increments of 4, 20, 24, 28, something like that. But it gives you an idea of how fast you're running. And that is the Mariner HMI screen.